It happens almost every morning. An alarm cuts through the silence. Your eyes open. For a brief moment, you're fully aware. You know exactly what you're supposed to do. Get out of bed. Start your day. But then, almost without thinking, your hand reaches for the snooze button. Just 5 more minutes. It sounds harmless. 5 minutes isn't enough to change anything. Except it does. Those 5 minutes rarely leave you feeling more rested. Instead, they often make waking up even harder. They make your morning feel rushed. Sometimes, they're the reason your entire day begins under pressure. And yet, the next morning, you do it again. If you already know hitting snooze won't make you feel better, why does your brain keep asking for it? Most people think it's because they're lazy, but laziness has very little to do with it. In fact, by the time your finger reaches that button, your brain has already made the decision. The real question is, who made it? Most people believe the snooze button is a test of discipline. If you hit it, you're lazy. If you don't, you're motivated. But that explanation leaves one important question unanswered. Why do intelligent, ambitious, and highly disciplined people press it too? The truth is, the snooze button isn't just a morning habit. It's a glimpse into how your brain makes decisions before you're fully aware of them. In this video, we're going to explore what really happens during those first moments after you wake up. Why 5 extra minutes feel so irresistible. Why they almost never make you feel better. And why understanding this tiny morning ritual might completely change the way you think about self-control. Because once you see what's happening inside your brain, you may never look at the snooze button the same way again. The strange part isn't that you press the snooze button. It's that you probably decided not to, just a few hours earlier. The night before, everything seemed obvious. You told yourself, tomorrow will be different. Maybe you'd wake up early to exercise. Maybe you'd finally have a slow, peaceful morning. Or maybe you were simply tired of rushing out the door every single day. At that moment, the decision felt real. You weren't forcing yourself. You genuinely wanted to wake up on time. So what changed? Between making that promise and hearing the alarm, nothing about your goals had changed. Nothing about your schedule had changed. Nothing about the importance of getting up had changed. The only thing that changed was your brain. Somehow, the person who confidently planned the morning and the person who hit snooze feel like two completely different people. One thinks about the future. The other only wants to stay under the blanket a little longer. If for both you, why do they want completely different things? That question reveals something most people never notice. The first decision you make every morning may not be as conscious as it feels. And if that's true, what other decisions are your brain making before you even realize it? The moment your alarm goes off, it feels like you're making a conscious choice. Stay in bed or get up. But neuroscience tells a different story. When your eyes open, your brain doesn't wake up all at once. It wakes up in stages. Some regions come online within seconds. Others take much longer. One of the last areas to fully wake is the prefrontal cortex. This is the part of your brain responsible for planning, self-control, long-term thinking, and resisting temptation. In other words, the part of your brain that reminds you why getting up matters is still half asleep. Meanwhile, the systems that crave comfort are already doing their job. Your bed is warm. The room is cold. Your blanket feels safe. And your brain notices all of it immediately. Not because it's trying to sabotage you, but because its first priority isn't productivity. It's survival and comfort. For a few brief moments after waking, your brain isn't asking, what's best for today? It's asking something much simpler. What's easiest right now? And that's a very different question. The snooze button doesn't win because it's powerful. It wins because it asks your brain the perfect question at exactly the wrong time. If the snooze button offered you another hour of sleep, you'd probably know it was unrealistic. But it doesn't. It offers something much smaller. Just 5 more minutes. And that's exactly what makes it so powerful. Your brain is remarkably good at making tiny compromises, especially when the cost seems insignificant. 5 minutes doesn't feel like enough time to make you late. It doesn't feel long enough to ruin your morning. It feels almost free, so your brain quietly accepts the trade, a little more comfort, in exchange for almost nothing. But here's what your brain doesn't calculate very well in that moment. The cost isn't just 5 minutes. It's waking up twice. The first alarm pulls you out of sleep. The second forces you to do it all over again. Instead of making the transition easier, those extra minutes often leave your brain even more confused. You're not getting meaningful rest. You're simply interrupting the process of waking up. Yet none of that matters when you're lying in a warm bed. Because in that moment, your brain isn't comparing 5 minutes of sleep with an energetic morning. It's comparing a warm blanket with the cold floor beside your bed. And one of those rewards is immediate. The other exists only in the future. For your brain, the immediate reward almost always feels more convincing. The first time you hit the snooze button, it probably wasn't a habit. Maybe you were exhausted. Maybe you slept too late. Maybe you genuinely needed a few more minutes. But your brain wasn't paying attention to the reason. It was paying attention to the result. The alarm rang. You pressed a button. The discomfort disappeared. Almost instantly. To your brain, that's the successful solution. And every time that sequence repeats, the connection grows a little stronger. Alarm. Snooze. Relief. Again. Alarm. Snooze. Relief. Your brain loves patterns like this. Not because they're good for you, but because they're predictable. Over time, reaching for the snooze button stops feeling like a decision. It becomes a routine your brain can perform almost automatically. That's why some mornings, you press it before you're even fully aware that the alarm has gone off. You're not carefully weighing the pros and cons. Your brain is simply following a path it has walked hundreds of times before. The more familiar the path becomes, the less conscious effort it takes to follow it. And that's when a choice quietly turns into a reflex. The snooze button may seem like a tiny choice. One tap, 5 minutes, nothing more. But psychologists have long known that our earliest decisions can influence the ones that follow. Not because one mistake ruins the entire day, but because the brain prefers consistency. Once you've chosen immediate comfort, it's easier to keep choosing it. You skip breakfast because you're running late. You grab the easiest food instead of the healthiest. You tell yourself you'll exercise tomorrow. You postpone one small task, then another. None of these decisions happen because you suddenly became lazy. They happen because your brain is constantly looking for the path that requires the least resistance. And after a rushed, stressful morning, that path becomes even more appealing. Of course, pressing the snooze button doesn't guarantee you'll have a bad day. Many people do it and function just fine. But what's fascinating is what that single moment reveals. Your brain is always making tiny calculations. Not about who you want to become, but about what feels easiest right now. Understanding that changes the question completely. The real challenge isn't learning how to resist the snooze button. It's learning when your brain is optimizing for comfort instead of what's truly important.